Okay, it's 2 o'clock. I'm calling the meeting of the Resources and Infrastructure Committee to order. We have a quorum. All 5 members are present. Chairman's report. I wanted to mention that the general manager and I and Ms. Dodson and our ad hoc committee on climate change, which is Julie Amaday and Mark Meeks, attended a workshop on the guidelines for applying for the grant. And I believe the general manager and Ms. Dodson have been working on what projects we can apply for. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're targeting some fire-related projects. Not some of it kind of depended on our evacuation route conversations with some of our community members. So still working, still evaluating some different options there.
Okay, and when is the deadline to submit the application?
May, June?
May 13th,
May.
May 6th, sorry. Full by May 13th, so yeah,
Okay,
bring up to May 6th.
okay. Ad hoc subcommittee reports. Do any of the ad hoc committees have anything to report on beyond the one that's already in the agenda? How are we on the
Yeah.
CIP?
I'll go ahead and report on the CIP. We've met twice since the last RNI meeting. We met on January 3rd and January, I've got it written down here, January 30th. And on January 3rd, we reviewed the CIP for the wastewater CIP. And on January 30th, we reviewed part of the water department CIP. Hope to finish the review of the CIP and then help review the final CIP list by late March.
Okay, so what meeting do you anticipate bringing a report back to RNI?
I would think the April meeting, wouldn't you, Jim? Yeah, probably, yeah.
Okay, so you've come up with, what steps you prioritize them to?
Yeah, it's been more of sort of an open discussion with staff and the supervisors. Saying what their priorities are, sort of a question back and forth discussions of what our priorities, what we view our priorities being. And that's been the discussion. Yeah, the ranking, that's been the discussion so far. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So sort of, yeah, agreeing on the ranking is where we've been going.
So you're
Yeah.
making some progress.
Yeah,
So our next meeting is on February 27th
yes, I believe so.
at
Yeah.
9.
Okay.
Sure I got the time right this time.
Okay. I'll check in with you after you do that.
All right.
Well, I have it at 10,
You have it at 10?
yes.
Uh,
Everybody else have it in?
I'm looking at it now. Let's see here, February 27th. I don't have it at all. Did you say the 27th?
Yes.
Did you have on a different calendar?
27th. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we'll work that out amongst ourselves here.
Okay, are there any other ad hoc committee reports? I think we have an ad hoc committee looking for grants besides the one looking for grants for unemployment. Nothing. Okay. Okay, is there any public comment on the chairman's report or the ad hoc committee reports? Okay, seeing none. Committee member communications. This is an opportunity for you to comment on anything that you've done since the last meeting that you think it's important to share with the committee. No? Okay. Mr. Green, you're on for the utility manager report.
Great, some non-utilities, projects that we have going on, obviously, Skate Park. We are working, just recently, Kristen Way, sorry, from Skate Parks reached out. And so we're preparing a biological report. That's one of the last situations. So that money use permit, and so we've contracted Kevin Mark to do that work there as well. So that's kind of the last crucial piece there. The restroom, we submitted our soils report, also a 2016 environmental monitoring plan. That was kicked back to us. They wanted a little update, so we'll be having Kevin Mark contracted to do that update on that environmental.
Is that for the skate park restroom or the East Ranch restroom?
The restroom, yeah, the fiscal east-west, yes. They also required some lighting updates, so we provided them that information, and we've submitted that all today to the county. We also had to change some signing agents and small little administrative stuff like that. Other projects that are completed are the Heath Lane, so our lane into our like little 1,000-foot section there going to the wastewater plant has all been redone and was just in time before the last storms when everything flooded out, so we probably would have lost that DG road in the last ones. I'd like to propose for March, we do kind of a priority with wastewater. We're gonna have 90% as-built, or not as-built, 90% drawings come forward here this week. So I'd like to have Tony, wastewater superintendent, come and present at March, and we'll get everyone up to date on all there's been a lot of recent additions and changes and nuances put to there, so we can come and speak to that.
The wastewater piping, the line replacement, is that a project?
No, this will be for the SST project. Yeah, we'll be talking about ECMs and we'll show plans on where everything's gonna go.
Great.
And coastal development plan, well, I think we know where we're at with that, so we'll continue on. Water meter replacement program, we have our 10 pilots installed, communicating. Within the first 2 days of having them installed, we were just clicking around. Do you have the customer portal up? We can look. So, yeah, if you just flip that around. As you look through here, they've got some, you can really get down into minutia, into customer accounts and so forth. But on the bottom corner left here, I don't know if you see
Can
that.
you, I don't know if you can throw that on the screen. Can you?
I'm not sure, we could probably.
So I'd have to log in.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We'd have to be through that computer. But 2 days into it, everything's communicating great. We're looking at consumption and a little alert pops up on the bottom that one of our meters is has a potential leak. We sent an operator and sure enough, they had a leak on their side. So first day of the, we were just trying to make sure everything communicates so well, and we're trying to, kind of kick the tires, so to speak, on the customer portal, see if I like it, and we gleaned the information that we wanted to. So yeah, I'd say it's working pretty well. Did you want to touch on some of the meter projects where we're going?
Yeah, we're still sending quotes for meter installation. We're getting numbers completed of lids we have to change out. We wanted to originally drill holes in all the lids and replace any ones that were gonna be tripping hazards, just to offset some of the costs. However, talking to the Badger.
Yeah, regional.
Yeah, the salesperson, she let us know that we cannot reuse metal lids as that will ground out the signal, so we're completing district-wide inventory for new lids to replace every single metal lid in town.
When it says metal, that's a traffic rated lid.
Oh,
Obviously, we don't have any sidewalks in Cambria, so all of our meters are in usual parking places or in driveways, so yes.
When you got meters quite a few years ago, I noticed what they did was they had one big molded unit. They used fiberglass or whatever it was. They molded the electronics inside with the battery. If the battery went, all the electronics had to be thrown away. And I was hoping that this time around they would revisit the idea of having separate batteries with a good plug that could, so you could continue to use the same electronics without tossing them every time the batteries quit.
Okay. So
This is a
very
big
good.
deal.
That's, our old meter infrastructure is about 22 years old.
Right, I remember.
They were hardwired and
Right.
together unit. So now the register will separate from the brass body.
Great.
The antenna and battery are all separate, hardwired, but they're removable. So
Well,
if
this
the
is
cord
great.
gets chewed on, we can replace the cord instead of replacing the whole unit. We got moles and jokers in there and they do their work.
Much better.
so yeah.
Toxic waste.
The difference with this is the old antenna or radio transmitter was underneath the lid. This has to be exposed for cellular reception. So we're actually having to kind of mess with the lids or drill holes or buy lids that already have pre-drilled holes. Because that top of that antenna will sit at surface level.
Wow, I'm just so stunned because I've been here for a while, now everybody's doing everything right lately.
10 times the charge.
Put that in the minutes.
So our plan for this is, we had a small debacle on our meter reading last time. We had some software issues. The program that we have is obviously 22 years old. Badger does not support this first generation reading anymore. So if we have any problems with the software for when we get all the reads, download, go to create billing, we're done. Badger does not support this. We'll be hand keying in 4,052 numbers so we're kind of trying to expedite this. So that's where we're looking at replacing every single register, commercial and residential. First shot, then we're gonna go back and we're gonna kind of do this at what they call a draw schedule. So we'll take 100 meters and then we'll replace the brass bodies in those. And during that kind of, it's not really a pilot run, because they're gonna be installed permanently, we can glean the data from that and see if some of these were misreading or under reading or not reading at all. And then that can kind of be a projection going forward to the quantities that we have to replace in the upcoming years. But as far as being able to read accurately and getting that data, especially when we're coming up on summertime and consumption rate, heightens quite a bit, that we want to get that data now. So that's where we're kind of working with finance, trying to look at the best available option. We got enough money to purchase outright all the registers we need for town, residential, commercial, and but we don't have enough to install quite. So to do both of those pieces. So we're just trying to figure out the financial part of that and the physical part. We're gonna actually have the operators have all said they don't mind, but we're gonna see how many meters we can install, in-house. Of course, barring any emergencies and, our regular duties. We're really gonna try and expedite this installation and purchase of the process. So, yeah. Anything else for water meters you want to add where we're at and stuff? No, the lid was an afterthought, but we didn't realize that many metal lids would interfere with the signal. And so we had to kind of rethink our procurement of that piece.
How many lids are metal? Are they all metal? Ours look like they're some kind of fiberglass.
Yeah, they're usually, that molded plastic. There's some fiber lids. Since we won't be able to go do metal, we'll have to do like a fiber, which will be like a blend of blend of materials rather, and those will be traffic rated. So,
Can I ask a question about the activity? So we've done with talking about the meters.
yeah.
So, on Van Gordon Creek, you guys did a lot of cleaning out that creek, so.
We did 600 foot of clearing, yeah.
Yeah, how did it do during the storm?
It performed fantastic.
Yeah, there's no backup of any sort of water, no natural dams from any trees falling over. It just went out into the creek, out to the ocean.
Yeah, all old debris was removed, so that the flow from the Warren property, which is that culvert, the county culvert that goes underneath Cincinnati Creek Road. Yeah, no, that flowed perfectly, and we didn't have any new debris that arrived as of yet. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Stewart Street Tank, we're gonna be talking about that today. St. Simeon Waterline Affluent, we'll be talking about that today. Just other stuff we got done. It's our electronic annual report, but our annual reports for water and wastewater are starting to become time to completed and sent and submitted our wastewater annual permit, and we're in the process now of working on our electronic annual report for water, which is back when I started with a fun little 7-page document, and now it's grown to 77 pages. So it takes quite a bit of utility staff and time and effort to get that done, but we should have that done the next 6 weeks. We'll submit that and then we'll bring that to R&I and you guys can go over all the fun minutia that the state asked for us as far as, finance and of course, consumption and all those items. So CLD, we really don't have anything new to update there. And that's really all I have. So I'm gonna go with public comment.
Let's take questions or comment from the committee members first. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on what Mr. Green reported? Okay, anybody in the public have a question or comment on what Mr. Green reported? I can't see Jeff. Okay. Are you okay, Jeff?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, and I don't see any hands up.
I don't see
The
any public.
attendees. Okay, so moving on, this is time for public comment on items under the committee's jurisdiction, but not on the agenda today. So do we have any public comment on items that are not on the agenda today, but under this committee's jurisdiction? No. Anybody online? I don't see anybody online. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. This is our consideration to approve the December 11th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Does anybody have any, anything they see that needs to be corrected in the minutes? I see one thing. And that is under staff present, the comment between our general manager's first and last name needs to be removed.
Okay.
Okay, anybody see anything else on there? No, okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
A motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, we have a motion from Mr. Meeks and a second from Ms. Amaday. We do a roll call, Mr. Meeks,
Aye.
Ms. Amaday,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Seaver, and Mr. Webb.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Okay. Moving on to regular business, this is discussion regarding the board-approved agreement for consultant services with MKM and Associates for engineering design and bid construction phase services for the replacement of the Stewart Street tanks. We're supposed to review the proposal and the site visit updates. So this is yours, Mr. Green.
Yeah, we just want to bring this back and, this project's kind of, gone a couple generations now from our previous, utility director to myself. So we just want to bring this to R&I, go over it for questions, review the proposal, which is now contract, and, I'll bring you up to date on our recent site visit that was performed last week. So we all met at the Stewart Street tanks. The two tanks there, we have tank one is 212,000 gallons. Tank two is 125,000 gallons for a total of 337 gallons of domestic storage. Due to our funding obligations we have with the EPA grant, CEQA, NEPA, coastal permit requirements, all applicable to this project. So we're in the process of performing CEQA and getting some of those early permitting things out of the way. We've had an arborist perform a site evaluation with our trees there. We've removed a couple diseased or dying trees there. They're concerned about that affecting the geotechnical around the tank site area. So that's been performed. We do have some CEQA documents that we're looking at, some of the old, archaeological and some of the environmental reportings might need a freshening up, but at least we're a little ahead of the game on that. We've got a scope of work from MKN here. Their preliminary engineering is, consists of data collection, topographic survey, and a geotechnical engineering report. Their design phases will be reported to us at 30%, 90%, and then of course 100% construction documents. We'll bring all those at each phase to R&I, each one phase as they come. But it's while we're talking about design phase and construction, this is a pretty aggressive timeline that's laid out here. So we'll kind of revisit that, and we'll have voting about dead dates, and we'll be reviewing that. Environmental permitting, the addendum to initial study on mitigated negative declaration of 2011, person's updating biological resources memorandum, cultural resources memorandum, and a pre-application package for a CDP exemption. We're put the same thing in that we had before. There's no new really disturbance or anything going on there. Some of the discussion items we had with MKN, we had a environmental team out there. We also have the survey team out there, and some of the stuff that we discussed for the project was we needed access for surveying and environmental assessment. So that took place at that time. We had environmental and surveyors out there. Data needs and discussion items regarding like record drawings. Those have all been submitted to MKN, our as-built plans. We're gonna talk coding preferences here today. Decision for color needs to be determined at the onset as they'll be required to be identified in our permitting submission. So until we pick a color, we can't submit our application as a whole.
Wow.
We brought some swatches today. We also had, released as an attachment, the
There we
color.
are.
They're pretty close. I know some of the hard-end computers or your tablet, if they're looking, colors kind of change. Some darkers get darker, some lighter get lighter. But we have, physical swatches here, if you guys want to take them out in the light. We've already had a suggestion, that's the flavor, so we'll, take note of that.
Right.
There's some. Other considerations, some of these not applicable, lighting, fencing, drainage. There will also be generator use during construction. When these tanks get coated, when they're built and they're getting the internal coating done, we'll have to run dehumidifiers 24/7 while that, I think it's about 48 hours of coating, and that's for each tank. So we'll have some small generator, powered noise that you'll hear if you buy the tanks there. That'll be going on for probably the better part of a week, just to make sure we get the appropriate coating. These all have to cure at the same rate, no moisture.
How big will
They'll be the same volume.
change?
So yeah, to avoid CDP and any other changes, not to.
But they'll be welded tanks instead
They'll be welded instead of bolted. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, we'll also touch.
stainless or stainless steel?
Steel, no, not stainless. Steel.
Coated steel.
Yeah.
Interior coating as well?
Interior coated as well. Yeah, they'll all be NSF rated. That's your American Water Works Association. All the coatings that you use on anything outside or inside for potable plumbing, domestic plumbing has to be an NSF certified. So these all meet those NSF
And they'll be-
certified.
And they'll be taller because you require more freeboard.
Yeah, so, a couple of things changed here since '92 when these were installed here. California building codes have changed. Obviously some environmental permitting has gotten more stringent. What's changed on the building side of things is seismic ratings. We're having to bring our overflow, which is near the top right now, we're having to bring that 3 foot down from the surface. That's just where they want. That's where the engineers say that's where it needs to be. It can't be any higher, so we have to build it to code. So with that, we lose volume. So the tanks will be 3 feet higher. They won't carry any more volume. They'll just have that freeboard space above. And that's for seismic. So that's for the wave sloshing event. That way, if you fill your tanks up full and you would have that seismic activity, that it would give it that freeboard room to move around in there without doing any damage physically to the structure.
Are there internal baffles in the tank?
That's what we were discussing. We were talking about, since that tank fills about 1.5 times a day, Cody,
No, that was multiple.
That's multiple.
So physically, the 1.5.
1.5. So it's filling several times a day.
Wow.
So when it comes to water, we know that potable water doesn't really have a shelf life. So we constantly are exchanging that, what I call inventory in those tanks. To keep water fresh, obviously to meet our compliance regulations, and just for the health and safety. What we want to do on the new tanks, and you can get pretty expensive pretty quick with this, but they're gonna have an internal baffle. Well, they'll come in and they'll mix that fresh water in with the old. It's a plumbing term or water treatment term called short circuiting. So say you have a filter and you have your influent and your effluents right on the other side. It won't go through the meter. Water's lazy. It's gonna take the easiest, most direct route and go right through. That's called short circuiting. So that's not going through the treatment process and disinfection. We don't want to do these things. So where it would go in and come right out and we'd have stagnant water in there. It's a nightmare to keep your chlorine residual up, which is what we measure weekly and have sampled weekly at 15 sites. And there's several around that area too. So an internal baffle, like I said, something called a racetrack, where that influent water will come around and mix with that older water, and then it'll go out to the effluent side of the tank. We'll look at
Do
something.
they do this at the tanks in Pine Knolls?
They do not have internal baffles.
Okay.
Yeah, internal mixing.
Okay, so are you gonna do these tanks one at a time?
One at a time.
Okay,
Right, yeah.
okay. And then, you talked about seismic changes. What about the, pads that the tanks are
That's
sitting
what
on?
we'll get. Okay, so with right now, the way the tanks were built back in '92, there's barely 5 foot of clearance in between. there's not a code to how close you can have your tanks are together, but they're very difficult to clean the exterior surface. If there are any repairs that need to be made, you couldn't even get scaffolding in between the tanks. We're gonna do some geotechnical, which will tell us the lip that comes from the retaining wall, how close that is to the pad there. And it's probably a higher possibility that we will need to replace the foundations for these. These are 18-inch thick foundations, which is very thick for the early 90s. A lot of tanks in the area are on a 12-inch thick foundation, which would definitely not meet required codes. The seismic retrofit grades that we want to put into the pad though are 3 foot deep. So they're thinking they want to put a 3-foot pad in there. So if we're moving now foundations, we're thinking about separating those tanks a little bit. This isn't going to cost us any more in engineering or anything more than just some simple grading work. I mean, obviously the foundations will cost about $100,000 more for the system, but we're not going to put a brand new tank on an old, maybe structurally insufficient foundation.
Do you have to remove the old foundation?
Yes. Yeah. So I have to remove the old foundation and get compaction. And then test for compaction. So yeah,
So-
there's a couple more pieces involved in that side of it. Not much on the engineering side, but a little bit more on the installation side.
Is this outside of the original scope and budgeting, or was this kind of anticipated, but we weren't sure?
It's accounted for, yeah, there's a dollars, not really in scope, but yeah, we kind of had a premonition that we might have to do something with the foundations.
So, yeah, I remember when we first went and looked at the site, and we were talking about the difference between bolted and welded tanks, and we talked a little bit about the fact that welded tanks might need a different base.
Right.
But, if you're separating the tanks, to allow more room between them to work on them, are they both gonna remain on the same site, or are we gonna be crossing over to our other property that we own adjacent to?
We will be coming over onto that property by about 20 feet.
Okay.
Right. Now, all this is contingent on our EPA funding. So we reached out to Jillian Bletz and her project crew to make sure that if there's any of these changes that we do here prior to, kind of after the fact of being earmarked, but before actual installation, we want to make sure that this isn't going to ruin our funding. We want to make sure that our funding still, if that is a crucial piece to the funding, then we'll have to make work with what we have, which,
That's a big chunk.
yeah. To some of the. So some of the timeline we're looking at here is, by the end of March, we'll have the preliminary engineering, the topographic survey, and the geological engineering and testing report completed. From there, your 3D plans, your 30% plans and drawing an estimate, and review, and all that will come into place start of April through June during that period. After that, we'll pretty much have 100% plans ready to take to, again, I'm gonna go with you every step the way, 30, 60, 90%. So I can see us by around July, maybe taking this to the board
Okay.
for final build. Sure.
So does anybody on the committee have any questions for Jim on this?
Yeah, if you want to slow down or revisit some stuff.
Would you revisit for me something that obviously I got lost on maybe half a year ago? I thought we had moved away from the welded steel tanks for cost reasons. Was that right? Am I remembering the meeting correctly a few months back?
I mean, that was Ray's concern.
That
was the cost.
Was the cost, okay. But we've decided it's okay now. I was a little surprised that the welded steel was kind of an add-on to this contract or something.
When I learned that we can go back to the EPA,
Yeah,
and now that we have our CEQA and all this stuff completed, we can go back for some more dollars
oh, okay.
for this project. So we can almost get this 100% funded project.
Got it, got it.
So with our new grant writer, as soon as we get all the CEQA and that complete, we'll go ahead and start that process for funding. For a second
So it
round
wasn't
for the
crazy,
project.
it was a cost concern
It
at
was,
one point.
it was
Got it,
initially.
okay. Okay, I just
Well,
lost.
I think it was a cost concern and also whether the base would support.
Would-
a
right.
welded tank. But a welded
Welded
tank
tank,
is
yeah.
better than a bolted tank.
Yeah,
Anyway, because looking at the bolted tanks, you can see where they leak and rust and all of that.
Yeah, and if you look at our bolted versus welded that we have in our inventory at the districts, it's, you definitely say go, you just look at it and say, yeah, let's go welded.
okay,
Yeah, just, there's a lot less, I mean, there's a lot less, maintenance
yeah,
and stuff over the years that you don't have to do like you do the bolted.
I don't doubt it. I didn't hear, I guess, when we decided to go back to welded. That's great. Okay. The design costs you say we can go back and get more money. By my calcs, the design costs are about 22.5% of the total budget there. Not too bad. I assume we're doing fine on that as far as this contract goes. Okay, got it. That's all I had to ask.
Okay, so this is probably a dumb question,
No,
but I'm asking it because I have seen tanks hauled on trailers before. This is being built on site, welded on site.
Yeah.
Okay, just.
so let's talk about, well, we're on the installation part of it. So the removal is gonna be noisy. You're gonna have a bunch of impact guns rattling 8 hours a day. They think it's gonna take about a week to tear down each tank. And the haul off's quite heavy. If you think of that tank cut up in the back of the truck hauling off, so that the removal part's gonna be noisy and, yeah, a lot of work.
What's our outreach to the neighbors? There, then it's pretty close. The neighbors are pretty close to those tanks. Yeah.
Well, fortunately, most of the neighbors immediately, when they saw this big group gathered up in there, had talked to us one-on-one.
Okay.
But we will do public outreach before, well before. We'll have all these dates, months ahead of time. So we can put together something internally with an ad hoc committee, how we want to do that public outreach. Or we want to have like knocking door to door, put cheap and easy is put it in the mailers with the bill. But I think something standalone that describes the project and kind of does a deeper dive into duration, noise levels, and kind of what footprint will be taken up when we do this build. We'll be taking the fence down by that tank 2, the smaller tank, and we'll be kicking that fence all the way out. So that way they have that whole staging area there. That is our 2 lots. Right there.
You do the small tank first, is that?
We're gonna do the small tank first, yeah.
Are you gonna put up sound curtains, or do we know, that might come out of CEQA, I would guess, whether we have to put up sound
Yeah,
curtains?
any permitting determination like that, yeah, we'll
Okay.
obviously comply with.
Okay,
If they say we'll need to do some sort of sound dissipation.
yeah, okay.
Good time for the neighbors to take a vacation.
Yeah, at least wait.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay, does anyone in the public have any questions or comments on this? Okay, do we have any public comment on people on Zoom?
I see no public
I
comment.
see no public comment. This is really unusual. We usually have hands up.
Kind of another aesthetics thing while we're on the topic. The current fence there is chain link, has no barbed wire at the top. No, there's kind of security, like 2-point or 4-point barbed wire. AWWA, the Division of Drinking Water, likes a little bit more secure tank for secure location and area for their potable water storage. So I made the suggestion, I want to vet it with you guys. I'd like to put 2 rows of 4-strand barbed wire just to keep the looky-loos and the fence jumpers out of that area.
Just barb, not razor wire coil.
No,
just
no
strands of
concertina wire. No, we don't want it to look like Shawshank Redemption. But yeah, just a little heightened security measure.
So you're talking about one of those little angled things that they put 4 strands of wire through.
Yeah, it'll have that leaner so that way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it'll have that
Right.
45-degree angle that'll come
Oh,
up
okay.
every upright, and then we'll just run 2 strands. The 4-point through there, just to provide a little extra security, but. Topic also came up if we'd like to put privacy slats in there. If you guys have ever driven into the wastewater plant, you've noticed we've got those little plastic 2.5-inch wide slats that go through, the diamond cut. I like the idea. I did it for some of our other locations. To kind of hide what we have behind. We had some issues with theft of batteries at one of our communication sites. And so we put up cameras and lights, and we also put up some privacy slats in there. I think they look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing than just
Yeah.
chain link, so that's something we can talk about. They come in brown and green. We're planning on painting the tank brown, so we could kind of do brown and kind of tie it all in together. But, I prefer some privacy slats, but that's up to you guys.
You're talking about security. Way back when there was a system where you're monitoring the levels, you have like a water level meter. I forgot the acronym for the system.
SCADA.
Very familiar with having done that, actually,
Yeah.
profession. Can you get cameras and then integrate it into that closed system? You could send the data back to a recorder.
We have several sites where we have camera that has,
But you
2
can use
years.
that
ago.
same system
Absolutely, yeah.
to get the.
We have several locations all on one camera system.
And then you get it into a VCR system or, a
It'll be digital.
Hard drive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you get all that information.
Yeah.
I found in knowing a lot about that business, that just the fact that we have cameras is probably gonna get rid of 90% of your potential intruders anyway.
Before we ever put up cameras, we put a sign that says, smile, you're on video, or 24 hours surveillance, and we never have another problem after that.
Right.
Yeah.
Those cameras are
Well,
good,
let's just do the sign.
Yeah,
but you've got the infrastructure then to do all the monitoring remotely so you can capture. it.
absolutely. Yeah, that's SCADA, that's,
That's SCADA.
supervisory control and data
Right.
acquisition.
It's just, so you're deep into the system, you're using all that.
Right, yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah, our SCADA's been very well developed over the past 5 years,
Yeah,
and it's probably 90% autonomous.
that's good.
We'll have another down the road here where we're probably talk SCADA in what, May, June?
Yeah. for
We'll-
next generation.
Yeah, we're doing like, probably our third and fourth, which will be final, phased upgrade for our SCADA, for water. And then, part of the SST, ECM is wastewater will be getting, a new SCADA program that mirrors ours.
Are you using Honeywell equipment?
No.
Who's the manufacturer of vendor that you're using?
We use some Opto 22 devices and Rockwell
Or Allen Bradley's.
and Allen Bradley. So all these 3 different points all have to be able to communicate with each other. Yeah.
We need to keep going on our agenda. We have a long meeting today.
Other things, so we touched on the fencing, drainage. Our drainage is adequate right there. Right now, we have 2 overflow DIs, drainage inlets that flow directly to a stormwater drain inlet as well, and then captured there. So everything else on the site is pretty well up to speed. Some additional notes that we have here. Seismic standards requirements will likely be updated soon, so the county and district may consider whether to have a design follow 2024 or future standards. So the proposed standards for seismic, we're looking into if that's gonna affect this tank boat. This is gonna affect this project. So we want to take some of those into account too. Let's build it for the future, not for right now.
How tall is the fence gonna be, by the way?
It will be right, same height that it is right now.
Okay.
So I think that's where we're about 7. Is it just 6? Okay. Yeah, well, there's 2 strands, we'll take that,
Oh, no, I was talking about the part that was gonna have privacy slats in it.
But that was, yeah. Some other things we have that county has their radio site there, so all their emergency transmission, sheriff, CHP, public works goes through that little building right there. So I've been trying to work with, county here. I finally got Merlin is the head radio guy right there, and I've been working with him. They have a huge 18-foot antenna on top of our second tank there that we're gonna need to relocate. I don't have any problems, obviously, with mounting that for future use in perpetuity, but obviously during installation, it's gonna have to be removed. So we're working on we don't want them obviously to lose any emergency communication. So we're trying to figure out a good location to put that temporarily while we're doing the install there. And I've also asked them to heat the building. I know it was kind of shabby. And community members request us to have that building cleaned. So we're working on that. So hopefully we'll get those couple things handled in the next couple months and well before installation. Basically more just foundation talk here. I don't want to get too lost in the weeds on this, but so it is looking like we'd be prepared to do installation or begin, be shovel ready, by late September, October. Which is a pretty good time for us. Our consumption goes down, not drastically, but incrementally, there in those later months, especially after, Labor Day weekend. Tourism slows a little bit, and we see that in consumption. So I think that's a great time to take a small tank offline and, begin construction. It'll still be dry enough. We shouldn't have too many, inclement weather issues that will postpone or, carry the duration of installation out any longer. So, that's kind of our timeline. It's an aggressive timeline, but I think it's something that we can ascertain.
How long will it take, do you think, to take a tank down and put the new one up? Cause I'm thinking you're talking about Labor Day weekend, well, we have Scarecrow Festival the
Like,
whole month.
it's almost
of
like our season zoning. Then we end up with Sarah Scarecrow, then we have lights at the lodge. So yeah, it's not really a good time anymore, except we do it in January and February, and they're just frankly too wet.
Okay.
Just too wet. The ground's too saturated. Yeah, it's not a really good time to paint wells, build during those periods of time. Even if it were dry, the weather's really cold and not the best for curing some of those exterior coatings, so. Yeah, we're shooting for the end of the year.
Okay.
And with that, that really kind of sums up everything I have.
When do you want suggestions on the paint color?
Well,
I've got two people here.
Yeah.
okay, no,
Diane, to give you a suggestion.
Julie hasn't seen, so we'll
My
we'll
favorite.
start with Julie.
We're doing one tank at a time. Yeah, the smaller tank first.
Mhm.
So time is gonna be about how long then, Charlotte? You said a week?
6 weeks.
6
for
weeks?
Tear down to when it's back in service.
And so when do you get to start doing the next tank?
We'll start,
The
as
fall.
soon as, as
Okay.
soon as we're
I'm just
completed with
thinking-
one, we'll start the other.
Yeah, it's all color, I don't know. And so you're somewhere in the browns?
Yeah,
So, and I don't care, natural is more to me, light.
I picked one.
Is it this one right here?
No, it's too light.
So right there.
Like a sore thumb.
Right. You went farther in? Well, hold on. It's somewhere in the beiges, so it's gotta be somewhere in here,
More of
right?
a tan.
my experience with some of the lighter colors, especially on a big piece like 300,000 gallons of storage, those lighter colors tend to get lighter.
Somewhere between the palette tan and not too dark.
And I want to look whitewashed or.
Yeah, but not dark.
Color is the display tank?
That's, it's kind of like,
Mortar, the bottom one.
Oh, like a gray?
No.
It's kind of a gray brown.
Yeah,
That's great.
it's a taupe. Is that the color I said to you? Just a second, let me look at this. I don't think it is.
It's not, these are Sherwin-Williams colors. We've had several recommendations and, we've done a lot of research on coating. We're gonna go with Sherwin. That was a different coating manufacturer. That was probably the
That's the one I
desert
was,
tan or desert beige.
I'm sure you
And
and
that's
I
pretty
are
much
doing a
what
great
the coastal commission signs off on for exterior colors.
job.
Yeah,
I lost the one I
a lot
had.
of older tanks are green. They've kind of gotten away with the coastal commission doesn't like the green color. So the desert beige is more neutral, more aesthetically pleasing. So we'll stick with the tan.
What about the roof area of these tanks?
There
Is it like stainless? What is it?
It'll be coated.
Coated?
Yeah, it'll have, coated primer and coated, yeah, finished epoxy, yeah.
Something big.
That's good.
I like that. Torque tan.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Okay,
yeah.
torque tan. We
Torque
agree.
tan, okay,
All right, I'm writing that, that's going into the minutes, so.
Torque tan. Of course, with time too, it will fade.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, they will let.
Yeah,
If they hadn't have cut all those trees down, I would have said it green.
right.
Less over the tree.
Well, at least we can all agree it's not gonna be hot pink. So
Oh, gosh, no, Pepto
Yeah, that's
Bismol.
torque tan is good. I love the idea of the privacy slats.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
a
good,
good idea.
okay.
I like that one.
It's an expense, it's not a huge expense. It's a
I just
couple-
think the more we can like protect the equipment, but also make it aesthetically appealing to the neighbors.
And torque tan was.
Where we put up those privacy slots in some of our home areas, like I'll try right by them, because I don't even know, because after a while, they really kind of blend in.
Right, guys.
So.
Because you do see the
Which guys?
details,
The
the
art.
valves and everything.
Yeah.
I think I would think.
You good with that, torque
I
tan?
could always be like, whatever, I don't
We're
care,
good.
just pick it. That's what I tell my wife. So, yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
Torque
it is.
decision.
Committee suggests torque tan.
Thank you. The current favorite? That is, that's, yeah, that's the popular. Pretty much.
Well, I wouldn't fight against it, it's, yeah. Okay?
You can accessorize it really well.
There you go.
We can accessorize it. Okay, did everybody get to see it?
So that's what you pick?
Steve, did you?
Steve, did you get the
Steve,
color?
give your 2 cents, Steve, all right.
don't live next to it, so.
Yeah.
Would the public like?
Show it to Tess?
Yeah.
Can I take that home and show it to Tess?
No. It's in the agenda packet. Thank you.
That's very nice. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, the full color charts in the agenda, well, not the full color, but the ones that are applicable to our, coding for the tank.
And it's right there in the back.
Okay. Okay, so this is do we need to vote on something for you? Just says discussion, it doesn't
I
say
think this is
discussion and
discussion.
consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is discussion.
So
It's a discussion.
it's just, so
Unless we want to,
we approve
Second.
on we approve on
Yeah.
the fence slats, we
Yes.
approve of the barbed wire, and we approve of the color torture.
there you
That's
go.
enough? Anybody object? Okay. And I don't see any hands up. Okay, so are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay, this is discussion and consideration of a recommendation to the CCSD Board of Directors regarding approval of an agreement for contractor services for replacing the San Simeon well number 3 pump. And I know we did this already, but apparently the contractor can't do it.
Yeah, contractor, we originally picked, couldn't get bonding. So, he backed out and I called up the other 2 quotes, have them give updated quotes. One of them performed a site visit and I reached out to a third contractor. Where they asked very technical questions and we felt comfortable with their responses and the information that they gave back to us. So if you look through the agenda packets, the first one is for Philipponi and Thompson. It is to remove the existing vertical turbine and install a submersible well about 70 feet deep.
No, just for, I'll seriously, they all have the same pumps, kind of guts of it. They're all quoted with like material pumps and Certalock plumbing and all this, so. The quotes aren't drastically different, they're incrementally different, but I just want to make sure that they are all for the same pieces to the puzzle.
But are they all the same brand of
Yes.
pump and motor?
Yes.
Okay, because your last one here doesn't even mention a motor, the precision hydro.
You buried the grunt post.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it says Grunfos. At the job description.
Yeah, and then-
Installation of new 51.
Yeah, it's up for Tiffany's front.
Yeah.
But it does,
It's in the body of kind of like.
Three eight five five five.
yeah, but it doesn't mention a motor. So are they replacing the motor too?
Franklin DR Motors.
Yes.
that you said.
Yes, you have to buy the 2, like as a package.
Also, what we'll, I'm sorry to interrupt, Cody, I'll let you. We're gonna do some of the internal plumbing right there, where the chlorine injects into the water, and then we're also gonna put in a full-time transducer, which will be, we're gonna incorporate in the SCADA, so it'll give us full-time levels for the San Simeon aquifer there at the well 3 site. If it's successful, we're gonna roll it out to the other 2 sites, so we'll have static water level, and this again will be in SCADA, so we'll be able to see that 24 hours a day, we'll be able to see the drawdown, and then the cone of depression when the pump is running. So we'll have, those are all new reports that Safer, Tristan, that's Safer, we report that to, but
Yes, we require to report both our static and our pumping levels for
Wonderful.
all our wells.
so this will give us that data that we'll have on paper instead of having, we're still gonna manually read well levels twice a month. We're not taking that away, but this will just give us that full-time data all the time. So with the cone of depression and the drawdown is a great way to determine the health of your pump and your motor.
So just quickly on the level control, what kind of instrumentation is it? Is it ultrasonic or is it mechanical? Is it? How is it?
Ultrasonic.
Yeah.
That's what integrates with our SCADA system the best, yeah. It's also the most reliable.
Sure.
Do you have a preference of these 3 contractors? I know we've had a lot of experience with Miller Drilling.
Yeah, they made a site visit. We've had, Miller just did our SR4 well for us last June. we like the Miller guys a lot. They do great work. When we reached out, when Cody reached out to Precision, they immediately responded and had just tons of questions to kind of validate their engineering on it, which we really like. So working with them, they really kind of just kind of raised our awareness too, and brought some other things in mind that we hadn't been thinking of. And so I'm leaning towards the Precision. Also faster Main Street.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
But that's where we're kind of in terms of the, we like to give them a shot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody on the committee have any questions about this? Anybody? Any of you sitting out there? No? Okay. Well, I'm gonna take your recommendation because they all seem pretty similar, but if you were that impressed with Precision, I'm fine with it. Anybody else?
Close and nice.
2000.
Yeah, two each way. Precision's in the middle.
Well, you got one higher, one lower, so. That's fine. Anybody want to make a motion?
No other questions on what we're.
No, we discussed this whole well thing
We
at a
did
previous,
pretty well. Yeah.
previous
Yeah.
meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, who made the motion?
You did.
I can't make a
Oh,
motion.
I'll make a
I'm the
motion to
chair.
pass the, sorry. I'll make a motion to recommend the quotation for the SS3 pump replacement.
For which company?
Oh, for Precision Hydro.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Seaver. Do a roll call, Mr. Meeks,
Aye.
Mr. Seaver,
Aye.
Ms. Amadee.
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Webb.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. I guess we're gonna go with Precision Hydro.
Point here, the motion is to forward the
Recommendation.
recommendation to the
To the
board,
board,
is
yeah.
that right?
Mhm.
Right, okay, thank you.
And yeah, recommend approval of agreement for contractor services for replacing the Sansamine well three.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
Okay. I don't see any hands up there either, and we're done with that anyway. So let's move on to 4C. Mr. Green.
All right. This is, we're looking for a recommendation for the alignment alternatives for the Sandston Wellfield water transmission and secondary wastewater effluent line replacement project. Staff and the consultant have recommended alternative 3. But we can talk about all 4 alternatives. And each one has their own little difficulty with permitting or some geotechnical. There's an attachment that we put in that kind of gave, it's scored based on permitting, difficulty, installation, reliability, longevity of the installation.
Where's that score? Where do you see that matrix? What page number? Page 2. Oh, yeah,
Yes, sir.
estimated cost.
We have the cost, we have.
And can you put the map up on the screen that shows the alignment of each of these?
Mhm.
You guys are recommending alternative 3.
Yeah.
Even though it's gonna cross the street,
Page number is that?
Yes,
and you don't wanna fly into
We're gonna
those bridges.
we want to get off that pedestrian and vehicle bridge.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a little bit longer. We can still, I mean, it's up to you guys. We can take that alternative and shorten it and still use the pedestrian or vehicle bridge. But I'd like to get that infrastructure off that bridge.
So the map on page 49, is this the one you want them to put up there?
Yes.
Work. Stand by.
Is the infrastructure currently hanging on the bottom of the bridge, or do we have it sitting on top of that bridge?
It's hanging on the bottom, and I believe it's held in place with 6x6 wooden timbers.
Oh, really? Okay.
So,
Well, then probably a good idea to move that.
Yeah, you know,
Oh, yeah.
just up the street here, we had some shims that were wood under a piece of AC pipe that
Okay.
gave way. So yeah, I'm not huge on wood. Thanks to our IT guy today to appreciate his assistance.
What page was it? 45?
No, it's 49.
49 is where the map is, yeah.
There was also a picture of underneath the bridge.
There is, we can,
Is
yeah,
there?
if you
Okay.
want, yeah, you can put that up there as well.
I think getting away from the bridge is probably a good idea.
Yeah,
I do,
Yeah.
it's probably gonna be about another couple $100,000 for that, but I think it's money well spent. I'm always trying to think of the future and how much longer those pieces are gonna last, and if we're there touching that, a half mile of this.
there's the picture for under the bridge. What page
Because
is
we've
that?
already got an access under Senate Creek, is there any permitting problems? I mean, we'll have to get what is it?
I know it's in there, I just can't find it.
Creek, adjustment.
That's why I have to-
Permit, there's a, what's the name of the permit?
The stream flow.
The stream, yeah. But,
What you wanted?
but is there any problem?
Yeah.
Getting
No.
permission to go under the?
So they like alternate three, it's
We've
more
already got
direct.
Fish and Wildlife,
Okay.
and
Gets you
we'll be
off that
boring under.
pedestrian bridge.
Gets you- And it gets you off that road.
Okay.
So, yeah,
It's
they don't
like
really have.
Yeah. it's-
POC to
it's nice
POC.
It's the
shot.
open trench cut
Yeah.
and that type of insulation that we're really trying to steer away from.
So we're looking at the purple line,
Yeah.
the straight line.
Right.
All of these
No.
little,
Scroll up a little bit now,
Alternative
that way we can give the key or the legend of view.
Down here?
Yeah, so you can see here, this is pretty much our current right here. We have cured in place pipe where they basically like inject piping into there. Be great for the wastewater line, not gonna work for the water line, because water line is broken right about right there. So there's no way you can slip something through something that's not lined up. So then that means that we're trenching in the middle of the wetlands to dig that up and do that. And we're
So
trying
the
to
break is
stay.
displaced,
Yes.
so you couldn't pull something through.
No,
You didn't
not
know.
on the water line. An additional problem with cured in place pipe, that's gonna go inside of a pipe, so that way it'll shrink your inside diameter. That's a
Right.
14-inch line inside diameter.
Right.
That's capable of moving, over 2,000 gallons a minute. If we start sizing down or choking down that pipe size,
Yeah,
we're gonna lose hundreds, like 500 gallons a minute.
yeah,
And if we're ever in, a fire period of time and Santa Rosa wasn't operating and we had to rely solely on the San Simeon well field, all three pumps, going 1,200 gallons a minute to push that, I don't think we'd get that through that smaller choke down pipe. So that's
Right.
why that's not
Well,
gonna work.
I don't think initially when we did any of these talks with the three contractors, we talked about cured in place. We did talk about a slip lining material that could possibly be pulled through there. Thinner diameter, but
Again, we're
they're kind of
losing
like,
inside
they're
diameter.
kind of
with
discarding it in here in a couple sentences.
Right.
It's just that the value of that would have been so great, I mean, to us, to not
I
have
think
to
it was
go.
also more expensive.
Well, the cured in place was, yes.
Yeah.
But we never talked about cured in place. We talked about a slip liner, which is two different animals
Mhm.
completely.
So, and we reached out to state parks and we're working with, Dan and the guys over there, on suggesting a new easement here, through here. We'd abandon in place our current pipes and we do a complete bore all the way across. We'd forego the pedestrian and vehicle bridge. We'd make the interconnection on what is our property, so we can stage, work, install all on our own property. We don't have to grant ourselves any easement or permitting. So that simplifies that. And again, it gets us away from, 40-year-old infrastructure hooking back to that on that pedestrian bridge, which we'd like to abandon there as well.
So the new POC on the north side where it connects to our property,
Mhm.
how much piping is infrastructure piping is left to go to its point, to its like source where the pump is? Is it going right to where our pumping? Is there more piping?
No, you can see this blue line here, and that's where we'd make that interconnection somewhere in there. Somewhere in there. So we have plenty of meat on the bone to make a good.
So how much
physical
piping is left? So where does that piping actually end up going? How much piping do we have left? To go, that's underground,
All this is AC pipe right here,
yeah.
14-inch, and that's all in really good condition.
Okay.
We've never had any.
It's underground?
But yeah, it's 40 inches below the surface in most locations until, of course, you get over here. And then we'd make that AC interconnection there on Exotic Gardens. So yeah, so this would be your, what's the lineal foot on the 4, is that 27?
26.
On alternative 3.
Yeah,
And this is
Look for
just the
that.
water transmission line. This isn't involving wastewater.
the wastewater will be in the same
In
easement.
the same. easement.
Yes.
Okay.
There'll be 10 foot of separation. We'll have a 25-foot easement.
Okay.
So think of the water coming in 10 feet from there, and then 10 foot of separation. You'd have the wastewater line, and then another 5 feet of kind of cushion area. Personally, I always like a pipe that I can get to and access, but this is an open cut trench, very expensive. And then we're having to deal with Caltrans, which we can't really confirm or deny where they actually works. That might be a chase to try and get them to do that right there. We also, I think in this, excuse me, have some geotechnical issues. I think there's some lava or there's something that's not certain there that I think we'd have to do further geotechnical spending and investigation when you're making that navigation where that pipe's gonna truly sit. So
Jim, the preferred alternatives then leave the existing pipes, buried pipes in place. Is there
abandoned in place.
abandoned place? Is there any liability, or is the park okay with that?
That's what we're trying to reach an accord with them.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah. Our environmental gang and us internally have been working with state parks to try and see if they. On the surface, and I don't want to temper expectations here, but they don't seem to have a problem with that.
Okay.
Providing us a new easement and then abandoning the old.
We won't have to refill it or backfill it or anything, just abandon it.
Okay, so that pipe.
We'll cap the 2 ends of the wastewater pipe that's there, because we'll be on site both at the
Sure.
influent and effluent of that. So they want those caps and capped and sealed rather, and that's not a problem.
So that temporary pipe that's sitting on top of the wetlands is gonna stay there.
That will be removed.
Yeah, okay.
We will use that though. We'll do water first, right? So we'll go ahead and bore whatever process of installation. And then we'll take that offline and then we'll use that for the wastewater transmission.
Okay.
While we do the wastewater side.
Okay, I thought we
So,
had
yeah,
talked about
so
that
we'll-
before, so.
Yeah, we'll still use that pipe. But once the installation is complete for the transmission line and the wastewater effluent line, that will be removed.
Okay,
That is one of State Parks, their requests. Yeah, they really like that removed,
okay.
obviously, so. Unfortunately, we've got probably about a year's worth of permitting this. We have to get, all the biological analysis and, the shoulders of the season going in and coming out of those different seasons. We could not break ground physically on this project till June 1st of 2025. So we've got plenty of time to do the permitting, to do it right, to make sure everything's in accord, with all of our stakeholders.
Okay.
Did you guys want to see a picture of the underneath of the bridge with that plan?
107. 107.
Thank you, I was looking for it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's what's holding several tons of pipe in place underneath that concrete vehicle bridge.
And I wouldn't.
Here's your wastewater line, the smaller guy, and then the bigger line, the bigger guy is your water line right there. So that's ductile iron pipe exposed. Mhm.
okay.
So now you can kind of see my prioritizing of removing it off that bridge.
Yeah.
Those bridges are old as well. I don't know if you remember last year after the March storms, Washburn parking lot was shut down because of that entry bridge there. Same year built bridge, same structure, not the same problems yet, but definitely a concern.
Are we gonna remove those pipes from under the bridge when we're done?
No, those will.
They're gonna stay there?
Yep.
Well,
Hey, does anybody on the committee have any questions?
It's a big one, guys, you know, this is kind of.
Anybody sitting out there have any questions? Okay, anybody online have any questions? I don't see any hands up.
no hands.
Okay.
You guys want to talk about anything on the document any further?
I have an email from Clyde Warren, from, he's a sense, Metro Sense, and he somehow has gotten involved, or he knows about this project. And he emailed me an alternate route. He's talking to a guy, Dan Falat at State Parks.
Okay, maybe you can share that with district staff as well.
Yeah, I should. Maybe I should
Nice.
just,
Did you get
Yeah.
that email?
I got an email today, but I thought it was.
But it was about something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got that one.
should be who he included on this email. That's it. Yeah, I'll forward this to you.
Yeah.
If he has an alternate route, he should email that to staff.
You should. Yeah, I'll just let you look at it. This kind of goes along the highway, but then it looks like it turns in and goes to the POC.
I think I know what he's referring to. It's pretty similar to that fourth one.
Yeah.
That we had up there. That has, Caltrans permitting issues, and then we'd be going right, we'd be on a bridge.
Yeah.
We'd be hanging pipe on a bridge, and then we'd be going through a very sensitive archaeological area. That is the old Washburn Road.
We do have a.
I was gonna say, despite the fact that that Washburn Road was paved at one time, that doesn't mean they're not archaeological stuff beneath it that we would be disturbing by digging, and that opens up a huge can of worms that could get very expensive very quickly.
We could get down to it with the plans fully designed and engineered and see an arrowhead and have them stop.
it.
No, you're not going to.
We're done.
Yeah. And when you're on site during construction, you have to have a archaeologist there full-time while installation is being performed.
We have a
So
member,
that's a considerable expense.
we have a member of public on Zoom who wishes to speak. David Pearson, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Maybe I missed it, but did anybody talk about money yet? Where we're gonna get the money?
Well. We haven't discussed finances, yeah. We just got this report as far as for construction expense. So. And we're looking at about.
2 million.
Yeah.
Big thing.
Big thing?
Think so.
Big car wash? Oh, no.
We
it's water.
can't take breakfast.
Okay, so you're looking at how much?
2 million.
2 million.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but that's an estimate. We won't know for sure till, we haven't actually picked a route.
When you get, when you get 90% drawings, you'll have
Okay.
enough to have an accurate scope of work to bid correctly.
Okay, so this is a discussion and consideration item. So you're asking for our recommendation of which one of these routes to take with the pipelines.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Mr. Pearson has a great idea. I thought we'd take the finance piece to finance once we kind of had an alternative in mind.
Okay. Okay, well, it sounds like you're recommending alternative 3.
Yes.
Yeah, and it looks like it makes sense to bypass the pedestrian bridge, and it is a straight shot,
It is.
so,
Yeah.
okay.
It's your opinion that by doing the hydraulic drilling that deep, they'll avoid any cultural sites?
Yes, and, environmental, cultural, yes. Yeah. But the way they look at it is you have one entry spot and you will have one exit spot, rather than cutting 2,700 feet of open trench. Which is also more expensive. You're upsetting a lot less earth.
I saw them do some horizontal drilling to put in fiber optic lines a few years ago, sort of in that area.
They
Is
did-
that in
they
the way
did
of
that.
where we're looking at, or we're gonna be deep, a lot deeper than that?
Will be completely offset. That was more by our current alignment that we're abandoning. In
Okay.
fact, that was west of that, and
Okay.
we're gonna be considerably east of that now
Okay,
by about 50 yards, almost 100 yards in some places.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
but utility infrastructure was another key piece to choose in this one as well.
Okay, yeah, I saw that in
The
there.
one closer to Caltrans, that's a utility, an existing utility easement area. So we'd be fighting with gas and AT&T and all those others over on that side, so.
Okay,
Right.
okay. No public comment. Okay, does anyone want to make a recommendation of forwarding the approval of option 3? This has to go to the board, is that what you're asking for?
Yes.
Okay,
I will move to recommend alternative 3 to the board of directors as the preferred alternative.
okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Steve Cedar seconded
There
it.
was 3 that you think.
Okay, do a roll call, Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Seaver,
Aye.
Ms. Amaday,
Aye.
Mr. Webb,
Aye.
Mr. Meeks,
Nay.
nay?
Yeah.
Okay, we have 4 ayes and 1 nay. The nay is Mr. Meeks. Okay, was there a different alignment you preferred?
I just like to look at these a bit more. I haven't really had a chance to really look at them and read this report, to tell you the truth, and really study it to make a recommendation. I don't really, I think it's really important decision now at this point.
So is yours a nay or an abstain?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Nay means you're against it, abstain means you're not quite ready.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Okay. This is a discussion regarding supplemental water supply options memorandum that was presented to us by Mr. Webb, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Meeks. And 3 items were brought to our attention that were possibilities for supplemental water supply. One was working with upstream water right holders. There are riparian users further up on Santa Rosa Creek that are trying a few things to kind of slow the flow of the creek down. Installing atmosphere water generation panels and using electromagnetics to look for water bearing sediments that could be trapped with new wells. So, which one of you would like to start? I think Mr. Webb's report is first
It's the shortest.
in the agenda packet, so go for it, please.
Okay, well, looking for water for variety of purposes is an activity that is practically part of living in Cambria. I mean, we've been doing this for all the years I've been here. I've been here about 35 years, and every year we have been looking for more water and looking for ways to use water more conservatively, and I think we cranked down pretty good to where we were conserving the water. And I would say that during that period of time, one of the things that's changed is that a number of the animals that live up in the watershed and stuff have become less secure in their survival than they were before. Like Southern California steelhead is now an endangered species. And I think that the looking to that watershed and trying to imagine some way of getting more water for the municipality as opposed to leaving the water in the watershed, I think is gonna require Herculean efforts to defend and justify. I just don't think you can do it. Even diverting small tributaries to the watershed, like Perry Creek and Green Valley Creek, which are degraded environmentally by being channelized through agricultural property, which raises the temperature of the water and allows cows to plod through it and stuff. And these microflows, at least as I understood the watershed plan for Santa Rosa Creek watershed, the microflows were deemed essential to maintaining water levels in the low reaches of the creek in the summer. Even though some of these microflows can dry up, like Laguna Estrada, the big wetland outside, just south of town, where you see these ponding waters developing on both sides of the road, has often been looked at as a potential place to get water, because you see water above ground there almost every year. But I don't know, just based on one comment from Tom Luster, who said, well, you know, it's quite a few animals rely on those wetlands that you have there. Kind of didn't make me look much further there. So there's that potential, perhaps, somebody can make the argument that the degraded tributaries don't contribute anything beneficial to the creek, and therefore maybe somehow this water could be used some other way, but it's certainly beyond my pay grade to speculate about. There are projects being currently handled by Creeklands, which is an NGO out of Aurora Grande, I think. And some of those projects are attempting to rough up the watershed, to make the water slow down. We all see in the winter that there's a huge amount of runoff, and everybody wishes there was somewhere we capture it or keep it in the watershed longer so it soaks in further and replenishes our access through over the same syndicate. But you know, I think we just have to wait and see how well these projects work. And at the same time, you've got a lot of new technologies coming on board, which I think Derek probably has a pretty good finger on, and Mr. Books as well, that they can talk about. There's a lot of ways of trying to gather atmospheric water. Basically, as far as looking at the two watershed, the Santinian Creek watershed is a fully appropriated creek. This has been designated that back in the 1990s. Santa Rosa Creek is not fully appropriated, but it is heavily monitored. And I think almost every ranch up there had to put a meter on their wells and report to the county how much water they're using. And so it is not it's not the Wild West like it once was. It is much more controlled. And whether those experiments will help improve the watershed, it will be difficult to judge. Especially when you have a climate change occurring at the same moment that you're trying to understand how that watershed works. You've got a fair amount of challenges going forward, I think.
So one of the things that Creeklands is doing is diverting some of the water from the streams into little ponds to see if it will soak into the aquifer. Is that what you saw there?
Right. They want to have ponds that will dry up completely. Because otherwise you end up with bullfrogs and other things begin to populate the ponds, and those in turn degrade the creek. When they get in the creek, they start to eat up the things you're trying to preserve. So yeah, the idea was to use rather shallow surface ponds, store some of the runoff that's coming down in the winter, and then allow it just to percolate down and hopefully recharge aquifers lower down that we rely on. So it seems like a common sense kind of approach, and I'm really grateful to the ranchers that have agreed to try it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I had heard that they were doing it up on Santa Rosa Creek Road, which is why I suggested that you look into that.
Yeah.
And I think, Mr. Green also explained to me about what Cambria, Creeklands was doing.
Right.
But they're only doing that on Santa Rosa Creek. Nobody's doing
Small
anything
little
like.
pilot project. There's
Yeah.
only 8 landowners only, but that's quite a bit that they're coordinating together with this project on this. So yeah, it's interesting. We're actually have a meeting, Tristan and I, Matt, tomorrow at 2 p.m. with Steph Wald of Creeklands.
Okay.
So we're just gonna see what we can do to help make it, our impact planning, better, make it more robust. Some projects that they're looking at in Santa Rosa Creek. So we'll see what kind of ideas that Creeklands has for us.
Is this something that the ranchers would be agreeing to try at non-San Creek?
I think if Creekland's got 8 property owners together on Santa Rosa Creek, they're probably pretty good at collaboration. So yes, we would have to be collaborative with all of our property owners on the creek, which is not easy.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Okay, is there any questions on this part of the report before I move on to the next, option that was looked at? Mr. Dudek, excuse me.
Thank you so much. Overall, I want to say, all those reports are fantastic. So way to go, guys. Good job. One thing, did you look at, I know it sounds like Creeklands is looking at this, but did you look at stormwater and flood protection as a primary goal with incidental water storage along the way? Because, there's a big difference, I'm sure you do, between going after a flood risk reduction project that happens to have incidental benefits to increasing the aquifer versus going after a water resources project which has incidental flood protection to it. If you go the permitting, the length of time it takes to get through the process, all of that is order of magnitude different between the two. Just wondering if you had, or could you consider looking into that?
I think that sounds more like a county project to me, but flood control and things like that. I mean, see the big flood control project right out here that they avoid flooding downtown, that they go to this giant channel under the highway and cut the corner to the creek. Those kind of projects come from either the federal government, I think, or the county government, and weren't part of the purview that I had.
The area where there's a crossover in that regard is on the Piscalini Ranch. Because obviously you all have responsibility for activities on the Piscalini Ranch. So to the extent that it would be part of that process, and you have flooding issues on Santa Rosa Creek, at Piscalini Ranch. So there may be opportunities there for some investigation to see how that could be married in with additional water supply improvements.
Yeah, I think you should look into everything,
Oh, I should, okay, great.
Is it possible?
Those would be some of the topics that we're gonna have with staff tomorrow.
Great.
Yeah. What are our options, what's viable, what's had the most, effective results.
Former President Don Howell.
Thank you. My question, I think probably Mr. Green, or the landowners who are creating these ponds and diverting water into them, does that alter do they have to make an adjustment to their own diversion permits?
They don't. I don't think, first of all, I don't think they have diversion. That's more of a municipality. And if we did that, that would not affect our diversion figure whatsoever.
Okay, anybody else? Do we have anybody online for this part of the report? I see. Mr. Pearson, did you want to speak again?
Yes, I don't know if it's this part of the report or the other part of the report. I was wondering why no one has looked into direct potable water reuse. Now that the regulations are out there, it seems that we have a lot of the infrastructure currently in place at the WRF, and it would be at least worth a conversation with the regional water board to see if we could be a pilot project, or if they would consider us for some project, even if it's 2 or 3 years from now. I think that ought to be something that that goes into the report and is considered.
Okay, I did discuss this with, Mr. Green, and this is gonna be a future item, I believe.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it is gonna be a future item.
Right now, the state has opened up DPR. They haven't assigned any like MCLs or any maximum contaminant limits or any type of like regulatory stuff to it that we can actually get traction on. But we're definitely looking into it as those start to become more concrete. Then that'll kind of tell us what kind of direction we can go with the project, such
Yeah,
as.
which is why we didn't include that right now in
Exactly.
this particular, report. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next one, I believe, is Mr. Meeks with the atmospheric water generation.
Yeah, so, this is very interesting, for me to research this and explore this option. It deals with the technologies, that involves basically condensation, using, the inherent humidity in our air to condensate that humidity, collect the water. Sometimes you filter it, or you always filter it, but that water then, that condensated water is always pure, clean water with no minerals. Sometimes for drinking water purposes, they will, remineralize that water, so it's not just stripped out water. But in no case that I see, do we, even in the commercial applications where they take the water and then maybe like collect it in a reservoir or tanks and then, or in reservoir it somehow or inject it back into the water table, but perhaps that could be done down the line, but none of them really, like, none of the research that I was able to turn over really dealt with that. And I'm assuming that that's what we would want. We would want to like use that technology to collect water and store it in some fashion and or inject it into the ground to augment the water table. But my report really basically goes through the types of technologies that are available, several different types of technology, active and passive. I won't get into all of that. It's all in there. But there were a couple of novel approaches that I thought that I included. One of them seemed very likely. It's from a company that I'll talk about here. It's called Source Global. Source Global is a enterprise startup, well, maybe several years ago, that was put together by Bill Gates and a number of other investors, and they produce a integrated panel that is a hybrid of a solar panel that produces the power in order to basically heat the panel during the day, and then at night when things cool down, use that heat to get a much higher yield of condensation and therefore water. And because these things are panelized, they could be scaled up. And in one situation or one example that they gave, that had been done where these panels had been integrated in an array type of situation, and they were producing something like 400,000 gallons a year. But they didn't go into too many details, and when I tried to follow up on that particular installation, there was nearly anything out there. I reached out to Source Global, and it was during the holidays, and they just sent me a form response and never heard back from them. But I did some simple math in here that I'm not sure that it really applies, but basically, if you were looking at one of their panels, by the way, is about $2,000, and it usually.
So what was the footprint that was providing 400,000 gallons annually?
It was 2,000. Basically, it came down to 2,000 of these units, and I'm not sure the physical size of them, but they look to be something less than a 4 foot by 8 foot, each panel. So Anyway, scaling that up, it would be, you know, somewhere around somewhere around $2 million to produce a 400,000 gallon a year. And that's, again, that's just a simple extrapolation of the data that they gave me. And, but it just seemed like it was an interesting, in that it was a hybrid type and it was a single unit. It seemed like a good,
Just to provide some scale, 400,000 gallons is 1 day consumption right now in this series,
Yeah.
in this
and
season.
that's a year. That's a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, and you're right, and so, and I didn't, you know, and I wasn't sure what our capacities were, and that doesn't surprise me. But, yeah, most of these
Now,
don't
at 4,000
really,
acre
it's
feet.
hard, yeah, exactly, it's really hard to apply this, I think, based on, you know, capacities that would be interesting to us. And I'm not sure that it would be economically feasible to, you know, take this down the road too much further, but there were some interesting devices out there. Mostly it's for, I would say, for lack of a better term, third world countries that don't have much infrastructure, correct? And, to work with, but, that's basically it. It's an interesting technology. I don't think it's really ready, at least for what I would say, what we would be needing it for. Although, in my suggested next steps, the first thing I said was we need to just define some sort of expectations for what are we talking about here? How much, what would be, you know, an attractive capacity that we would want to look at, you know, for anything like this. I was going on basically nothing other than just what the technologies were out there. And I think, there very well may be some things out there, just that I'm just not sure that it's economically feasible to try and consider something like this. But, again, we need to define what our capacities would need to be, what our expectations, and what would, you know, and before we can even go down the road of thinking if it was even really financially feasible or, you know, possible to even go down this road. But, you know, basically, the next step would be obviously was to consult maybe with an engineering company or one of these companies that produce these things to, some of these technologies, to find out, you know, what could be done, you know, how could these be
Model
scaled?
the scale.
Yeah, model the scale, correct. But, yeah, I just don't know that, if the technology and the footprint would really fit for us, you know? It would be for like perhaps on an individual basis, you know, that's kind of what it's going down to. For producing water for drinking is really what they're looking at.
I did some research too on Source Global
Yeah.
because it was brought up at a board meeting.
Yeah.
So, a single panel on a residence would produce 3 to 5 liters per day of water. That's 1.3 gallons, which is, and the panel has a 15-year lifespan. The panels require exposure to sunlight to produce the water, and the production is severely reduced in cloudy and foggy areas. It's about $2,500 per panel plus $1,000 installation. The water would go into something like a 4.8 gallon tank underneath your sink that has to have 80 PSI. If it's cold, the panels hibernate. Okay, they don't produce water and they cannot be installed on a pitch roof. So when you're talking about a home,
Yeah.
it has to be a flat roof because these have to be installed on a 45-degree angle, and that's the way they're built. So it does not work on a pitched roof. And they're saying that the purpose of this panel for residential use is for drinking and cooking water. And if you stop and think about it, 1.3 gallons is about what a toilet takes to flush.
That's
So
right.
you're producing enough water that a toilet would take to flush once. And they're recommending at least 1 panel per household of 2 people just to produce drinking water. I looked at the, doing for a community type thing and
Commercial, like in a commercial.
and you're looking at 1,095 panels to produce that 1.23 acre feet. for about $2.191 million.
Exactly what I got to.
Yeah.
I got 1,095 panels, produce 400,000, that's approximately $2,000. It's about $2.1 million.
Sounds like a great system for a treehouse.
If you're out on the Serengeti or something, you know. and you got
But, you
nothing.
know, we get a lot of fog here, we get a lot of clouds here. This wouldn't be really that effective to really supplement our water supply. I mean, we would have to have a massive amount of these, and I figured out, I don't remember where I came up with, I couldn't find a paper that I copied that said how much it would take, to really supply the community, but it was a massive amount, it was like $10 million. And for $10 million, we're close to being able to run a pipeline from Well
Well,
Rock.
right here. Yeah,
Or
they're about
truck
3 million
water.
shy.
Yeah, so that's what we talked about 13 million to run a pipeline from Whale Rock.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things the Army Corps of Engineer looked at a long time ago and determined the cost and what it would take with Caltrans and all the properties along the way to run that pipeline. So, yeah, we're looking at a lot of
So
water.
it doesn't really scale up for us in a positive way, really.
No, but what is helpful is hearing the technology, and then it's great to have your counter turn, so it just kind of puts it all. in
Yeah, I researched Source Global, and there was another company that started with Source, I think it was Source Water. Source Water is the name of the company, because I thought this was an interesting idea.
It is, but now if we're talking releasing a couple meters or having something supplemental to begin that process, it would have to be something that the county would sign off on as an additional source.
Yeah, and I don't think.
The last time something like this went in front of county, that was
No, yeah,
not considered an additional.
And I
source.
think and it was, although I could not find any information on it, I would imagine there's gonna be a certain amount of, maintenance involved in maintaining these, because
it was annual
those,
maintenance.
yeah, those clean air waterways, those things are gonna have to be disinfected, kept very clean. And, you know, you just don't just set them out there and forget them.
When we're talking about the treatment side of things, regardless of how clean the water is, stripped of any, minerals,
Yeah,
we would still have to treat that water. That would be considered.
I would
surface
imagine.
water treatment.
right.
We still have to.
You still have to treat it.
Yeah, we have to put it through a T3 plant. at least.
Yeah, if you're putting it into a municipal water supply, it has to,
Potable water, sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so any questions or comments on this one? I know you're the one who brought it up at a board meeting.
Yes,
so-
I did. Yes, I did. Just for kind of perspective, or maybe to get a little bit more of a sense. Another way to look at this, because you were asking the question, Mark, right?
Yes,
Or Mr. Meeks, I guess actually. Mr. Meeks. You were asking the question, what capacity is desirable? How much are we looking for here? I spent a lot of years doing renewable energy resource planning and looking at integrated resources plans. And when you do that, you want to look at the whole load duration curve and break it up into the different pieces, because different times of day, different times of year, your incremental costs of power can be significantly different. As you all know, you pay for PG&E power, you know, during the peak time of the day, you pay more because it's more expensive for them to get. So one consideration here might be the extent to which this resource might produce water at times that you need water. And you might only need 10% of your normal usage during that worst period of time. And if you think about it, there may not be as much fog as that issue may not be an issue during the time of year when you're hurting for water. And so if you scale this back, just again, let's look at your $2 million thing. And I ran these numbers real quick, so I apologize if I mess them up. But if you're only looking to serve 10% of your need, then you can get you might have to pay $10 million to get 60 days worth of water for that 10%. But that's if you assume that $10 million thing is the same price. You might be able to get that for half price.
Yeah.
And if you're able to serve that 10% of your need that can't be served, let's say your WRF goes down, some other things, you know, then that could be an issue.
The other point to consider here is, and I know I'm treading on difficult ground here. Because the board hasn't provided policy that would move you in that direction. The reason you might need that extra 10% was for those new meters that you're talking about putting in. Maybe, someday, when the water wait list moratorium is lifted. And those new meters come with more revenue. So when you normally think about this, you're thinking about where we in Cambria are gonna get $10 million. Well, one answer to that is, well, if those new homes need that water, then they can pony up the $10 million. If that's what it takes to do that. So that's sort of kind of free your mind up a little bit from being, thinking just in terms of, this box. And as I said, time of day, time of year, and who's being served by that water. So that new source. And hard to use the word source, and I don't mean it's the source, but so anyway.
Well, I got just two more comments. I realize that, we have a lot of fog here, but you go half a mile inland and that fog is gone, right? So.
Yeah.
The placement of those devices, those panels, if that's what we're talking about, would be critical. And, so I just kind of discounted that because obviously you'd want to put them where you'd get the most advantage of them. That might be right where a typical phase change would take where that fog burns off is probably where you'd want to place those things. And then the other thing is that, yes, there may be economies of scale. And I think I did talk about, did mention that there could be economies of scale, but we don't know that now. We wouldn't know that until we really got into this, trying to scale up a system like this.
It'd be all interesting to see how much area almost 1,100 panels would take up. And where we could possibly put something like that. I don't know that since we're already having issues for our WRF, if our San Simeon Wellfield property is a place that we would be allowed to do something like this.
Well, I mean, you've got two surface water treatment plants off of the center rows, so it would make sense to put it closer to the source, closer to where your treatment flow was, in my book. Otherwise, now you're paying to plumb that source to your treatment facility.
Yeah.
I mean, you certainly know where Esha stands on San Simeon Creek Road.
Yeah, we do. Mr. Pearson wants to speak again?
I'm sorry, I forgot to put my hand down. My
Okay.
apologies.
Question.
Sorry.
That's
okay.
Sorry, Mark,
No, I was
back
gonna
down.
make some water.
Do any of these systems lend themselves to, say, home-sized, non-potable use? Because where my mind is going is there an option for people who want to irrigate or something to put one in their house and maybe have the district, pay 5% of it, 10% of it, something like that? Are any of them large enough to be useful for home-sized and non-potable uses?
They only produce 1.3 gallons a
Well,
day.
that one does, yeah, that's what I was hoping there was a different technology that had slightly more than 1.3 gallons per day.
And I did see
Yeah.
in here that if you had multiple panels on your home and it produced more than your little tank under your kitchen sink
Yeah.
could hold, that it would have a tube running off to catch all the extra water it produced that can be put in a storage tank or in your yard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like secondary containment.
But right now, people are watering their yards by rain catchment off
Right.
the roof
Right.
and paying to have water hauled in, so they are saving on our potable water.
Right, and it'll have to be, any technology would have to be cheaper than that, basically. We'd have
Of
to say,
course, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the efficiencies, I just don't think they're there, to tell you the
Okay.
truth. I wouldn't consider it in my house, I mean, because, you know, I'm not gonna put $20,000 into a system for irrigating my, irrigating my yard.
Right.
And you have
Just
a
doesn't-
pitched roof.
I have a pitched roof, yeah.
Okay, any more questions on this one before we do the next technology? No, okay, Mr. Williams, you're up.
All right, the third one, the third part of this memo is about, mapping aquifers using geophysical techniques, which is being done around the state a fair amount these days. It's being used for a couple reasons. One is to map areas where we might get good recharge, if you want to build recharge basins. And the other one is to look for areas of aquifers where you might want to put wells or try and capture some more water. It's a technology that sort of came out of, Denmark some years ago, is being used quite a bit, like I say, up and down the state. The idea is that it uses electromagnetics to sort of decide what the resistivity of the ground is. And then you usually have a few boreholes where you can then compare the resistivity that you measured with the geology, and they extrapolate out throughout the area, throughout the aquifer using that. They use the extrapolation from data points that you know. That's the way it generally works. It's fairly good if you have a area that you maybe have one data point, one well, or what in the memo was called the CPT, cone penetrometer data. And you want to extrapolate that out and say, can we figure out if there is a better place in this general area where we might put a well in? Two systems that are out there, one flies under a helicopter, and that's for mapping big areas. And one is towed behind, basically. Utility, and that's for mapping smaller areas, kind of field scale areas, orchard scale areas, which might be a little more our style. It's fairly useful technology if we think there are areas that we want to expand a well field into, and we don't want to spend a lot of time drilling a lot of wells to look into it. It does you can run them in a day, basically. You can run the electromagnetics in a day, but you do need some information to tie it to. So fairly useful, but it does have a very particular use, and we would have to look and say, this is the acreage that we want tested and looked at. What could we learn from it there?
Is there a rough idea of cost?
Rough idea of cost for the totems. I don't have it. I could get it for you pretty
I'm
quickly.
interested.
No, yeah, I could get it for you. I know a couple companies that do run these.
How accurate is it?
It's quite accurate, actually. It's surprisingly accurate. The trick is on the extrapolation to get a fairly accurate interpolation between known geology from a borehole or one of these CPTs. And you want to drive right over it, say, okay, we know exactly what happened at that point, and then extrapolate out.
Just as a reference point, sort of like.
Yeah, and have some good reference points, but it's fairly accurate once you do that. Yeah, I've used it actually for mapping the large scale aquifers all up and down the Salinas Valley
Oh, really?
right now. Yeah, very large scale.
So it's pretty widespread and wide use.
It's the Department of Water Resources in California is paying to have it flown up and down the state on a very gross scale. And then if you want a lot more information, you can pay more to have it done on a finer scale. The most interesting part about that is the Department of Water Resources is using a helicopter out of Paso Robles. They got the contract to fly the entire state. They have a good deal going on.
Let's buy helicopter.
Exactly.
So how do we convince them to fly over?
Yeah, probably the helicopter's not gonna be the most useful for us, I would guess, based on the size of our aquifers and the depth of them. Probably the smaller system is gonna be the more useful one for us, the towed one. Yeah, is gonna be the more useful one for us. If the groups or if the board is ever interested, we could get some costs pretty quickly.
I think it would be
That's
helpful. to
interesting.
get some
I would love
costs.
to
I
have
would
that
love to.
evaluation before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to have that too.
That's interesting.
And then we
Is that-
bring it back here so we can talk about it some more before we take it to the board.
Sure, like up on Green Street, you know, and we know just because we've been called to a leak out there and it's just underflow or,
Yeah,
you know, the
Oh,
drainage
so you would
for
be-
months, like even through, you know,
Yeah.
May and June. So I'd love to start there.
yeah.
Looking for leaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, people call, there's a leak in here, we get out there, it's just
Yeah.
groundwater coming
That's
out,
really-
yeah,
that's
I
a
mean,
good-
we're so
yeah.
full right now.
Yeah.
You see all this
Well,
runoff. I
Stewart
mean,
near Preston's got a place there too where there's water constantly, and I know there's some places down Marine Terrace where it seems like there's water leaking out all the time. You know, what brought this idea to my
My house.
attention was basically, one of the small, CSDs that attended the, annual conference had gotten up and spoke about a drone that they used to fly over their area that actually found water for them. And so when I mentioned it to Derek, he mentioned that he already knew about this technology, but the sled that you towed behind and the thing you flew over. So I thought this would be a good option for us to look at, but yeah, maybe we can get some, costs and talk about it a little bit more.
That tool behind imaging, technology was used by, I believe it was used by PG&E out around Diablo Canyon. And they're basically looking for faults.
Very well might have been, yeah.
And they had ground thumpers that then received the information back, go back, and they had other things they dragged behind tractors and pulled it along the ground and imaged what was happening with faults, which is kind of the license renewal that they.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll put down on to-do list, get costs,
Yeah,
probably
and then-
for,
And then we'll bring it back and talk about it
Okay.
a little bit more. and-
Sure.
And talk about areas where it might
Right.
be useful. Okay, we found water on our 5 acres over in the foothills by hiring a witch.
Okay, don't tell me
Like-
that, don't tell me that.
Really?
When I think of water witch, I think of like two brazen rods. I
No.
go down.
Fly over on a
She
broom.
was amazing. She showed up with her husband who had an ice chest full of beer and sat and watched her. And she went down there with her little sticks and she
Dividing
found the spot and it was the right spot.
Amazing.
Divining rods.
Yep, she had divining rods. It worked. She came highly recommended.
We still use the old rods to, when we don't have a line or anything that we can track or trace, yeah.
So it works for you too.
Yes,
So you need to go out there and walk around all these areas where you're able to find them.
I will say, when I was at the county years and years ago, they took all of them out of the trucks because somebody had swore they had found something with it and they got down there and they punched a hole and it was a fiber optic line. That was the interruption, it wasn't a water line, so, yeah.
Okay, so do we have any questions or comments on this?
Those are expensive to hit.
Mr. Howell?
This is not directly related, it's germane to the subject, but not specifically this report, if that's all right. It's a question that I have, because I understand it. The WRF does not, when we run the WRF, it makes our supply more reliable. It does not increase the amount of water that we're permitted to withdraw from the basin.
Exactly.
Now, so the question is, would it be permitted if instead of reinjecting the water, I mean, is indirect potable reuse, if we went to potable reuse so that we simply pulled our already used water up and then purified it and put it right back into our municipal system, would that count against our diversion permit, or would that be new water for us, in other words?
So I had a lot of exchanges back and forth with the DWR over the water that the WRF produces. And they do not consider the water the WRF produces as new water. They consider it supplemental to our aquifer so that we can be more capable of drawing out our licensed diversion amount. They measure our licensed diversion amount by what comes out of the well. So,
Oh, excuse me.
and I think I talked to Jim a little bit about how direct potable reuse would affect our diversion. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, that was the question I had, was how would it affect our diversion permit?
We have to extend.
Right, so instead of injecting, and we, of course, California has to define the terms, the MTLs that I spoke about, but that'd be great to just directly plumb that right to our system. And hopefully that's the direction that the state's going. It's, from my understanding, that's where we're going. Also, from my understanding, that would not affect our diversion between the city.
So it is like new water.
Right.
In other words.
Right, but what we do have to be careful of when we start talking about tertiary plumb directly to the WRF, we do have a gradient there to maintain
Right.
that seasonally we could get ourselves into trouble in if we were just making water, and then we reverse that gradient and we start to get that seawater.
Right,
You know, coming into the well field. And so there's just a couple of things to think about on that end, but I think it'd be great if we could direct the potable reuse of that plant and just pump it directly in there.
No, if you pulled it out like now, but instead of re-injecting it, you still did the stuff to re-injected some of the product water to support the,
We do mitigation water.
yeah, but you could still take the other.
We need to remember with re-injection, we only really get back 60% of that, so yeah, so it's about half. So it'd be nice to get all of it, and put it right back in.
Nice to get all of it. Anyway, thank you, I just want to get clarity.
Great, I'll send you to bring that up.
I need to extend for 10 minutes. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Because we're supposed to quit at 4 o'clock, so, okay, 10 minutes. Is there any other questions about, these technologies that we looked into?
No, thank you. I was just really
Okay,
informative.
so you're gonna do a little more research on the cost.
Yeah.
Mark, let's see if we could find a little bit more about those panels, like the size and what it would
Sure.
take to,
So we want panel size and what, cost, maybe some
Yeah.
updated costs?
yeah,
Okay.
let's talk a little bit more about that. And, I think we're okay with the other, do we have any, future agenda items? You had something you wanted on March.
March, we're gonna talk wastewater and the SST. We're going to, provide basically, what will be the as-built or the 100% drawings.
Okay,
As soon as it gets dry enough out there, we can get underground, we'll get that started, like we're a couple of months out from that, but we can at least talk, bring it forward.
Okay.
What kind of the latest ECM upgrades and decisions we've been making.
okay, and if we have any more information on zero liquid,
Or ZLD,
okay,
let's see if I can. In the next month, if California, tightens any of their stuff up, we can also bring the DPR
okay,
forward too. That's tentative.
okay, and the CIP won't be ready until April?
I don't think so. It won't be ready before, for the March meeting.
We won't have it ready for the March meeting.
So
I-
we'll call
I'm
it
anticipating the SST taking up a good 2 hours of that too.
Okay,
Just for that.
I'm excited about the SST. Yes,
Was Jim Webb going to maybe look into some synergies there with flood, looking at flood control, maybe bubbling your ranch?
if you wanna look into,
To enhance the water supply?
did you wanna look into that?
I guess I really don't know how to begin with that. I mean, I grew up in the shadow of the Sepulveda Dam. So
Very dangerous.
I remember seeing what it's like when that floods and protects all of LA. And that's about my own exposure to it.
Is that something, you would be able to look into, or that be David Aguirre's area, or whose area would that be?
I mean, I can,
When you,
The idea being to what, somehow store,
just
yeah,
the potential for stormwater capture.
Yeah.
In large scale.
yeah, well, we've looked at that a bit before, and we didn't find anything, but, yeah. Do you wanna look into stormwater capture then, Jim?
I can, yeah.
Okay, maybe you can talk to, the two Jims can talk together.
Jim Square here.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a fine thing.
okay. Now, normally, in past years, in either March or April, all of the departments have brought their wish list, the things that, not wish list, but priority projects that they want considered for the budget, and they bring them to the Resources and Infrastructure Committee
Right.
first. So is that gonna happen in March, or is that?
I mean, I think that's our intent with the CIP.
Okay,
to kind of bring that, we'll have ranked, we'll award rankings, we'll give wish lists from our beloved superintendents, and
Okay.
then we'll kind of flesh it out from there.
Okay,
Those
so
rankings.
April.
Yeah.
Okay, we also
Yeah,
generally
because that'll be
have,
right before we go into final budget.
okay, we normally have FNR and the fire department along with that.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Okay, anything else? Oh, seeing none, what time is it?
It is 3:59.
Oh, we didn't end up having to.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna be here all night, so thanks. Thanks for attending. I mean, this is not just shaping the district, they're shaping the whole community. And I really, really appreciate all you guys' input and time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if there are no objections, it's 3:59, probably 4 o'clock by now. I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Fantastic.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.